morning, folks. Welcome to another session from the Wise Asylum. It's all going down now, is it not? What last Monday we said the kicker, and Saturday night's the fire starter. Oof. Not good, is it? Let's be honest. But I have to say, I don't think things are going as well as they wanted. To be quite frank, a lot of what were going on yesterday and last night was showing itself to be rubbish. So we had reports everywhere on the old Twitter. Oh, Iran has blacked out Israel. It's all in darkness. And then a guy came up live and said, no, it's not. And showed everybody that all the lights were still on and everybody was still playing out. So it's just spiel, theatre everywhere. And as long as they get everybody out there in TV land to believe it, then it's all going on. But then we knew it was coming anyway, did we not? Interesting, very, very interesting. It's just, they're so predictable, especially when you've been following the game for such a long time and you can see what they're doing. It's child's play, really. But of course, if you're still fixed to La La Land and you're sucking into the television and all the shills, then you're going to be shocked by it, aren't you? It's going to be terrorising your mind. You're going to be terrified. You're worried about everything. But at the end of the day, it's just theatre. It's all theatre. But if they can get you all excited and get you to war, then they're going to succeed at killing millions upon millions of goyim, as they call us. So, yep, off we go, and away it goes. And all the fruit bats at the usual places, Chalker, Westminster, Chalker, Washington, and the rest are all spewing it out as though it's the most important thing in the world and everybody has to back Israel, who's been attacked. Oh, shock horror. It's shock horror because Israel's been attacked. Forgetting, of course, that last week they blew the living daylights out of Iranian military brass and so thus attacked Iran first. Which is interesting because I have a bit of data to share with you in relation to a meeting that a gentleman attended quite some years ago. A UK politician, and the meeting was full of other UK politicians, among other high-ranking hoity-toits. And in that meeting, the plan was being presented. So it's not a new gig. We knew the script. We knew what they were going to do, and away they've gone and done it. But you know, synchronicity. I do like synchronicity. And I've had nothing but that in the last 6 weeks, I have to say. And I pulled up, I've actually found a book that I put together in the mystery school. So that's back in the 1990s. But it's not a book of notes of immense words, as a lot of the books that I no longer appear to have, where I was going through in detail all the books that I were reading, what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them, looking for the play, etc., and the value. This is a book that I put together which was based entirely on my intuitive sort of grasp on what it was I was studying at the time. So there's pages upon pages of that kingdom within's grasp on what it was I was studying and how I was understanding it, as opposed to what the propaganda wanted you to believe in said books, etc. And I quite enjoyed looking at some of it, but one in particular, which was in relation to sort of putting together Jesus, Lucifer, Yahweh and Allah, and looking at the attributes to see just how different they are in truth. And that was very interesting, the insights I had then, which has reminded me again of the kind of the thought forms I were, taking on board way back in the day when I was in the study side of my days rather than the research, which is what we do on the internet today, trying to work out what's going on in the world. So we'll have a little look at that later. But some interesting stuff going on this week. Australia are pretty much showing themselves to not be very good at these psyops, if the truth be known. So I think they have some catching up to do if they want to get up to the grade of absolute nonsense that the rest of the world seems to carry out when they're doing psyops. Hence the reason why Alex Jones was paraded all over the shop about Sandy Hook. They don't want you to dare undermine and publish your thoughts on the psyops. The same is going on at the moment with the Manchester bombing. Now, I don't know much about the guy that's actually carrying out these investigations, and he's up in court, so I can't say one way or the other whether they actually are attacking him because he did it right, or it's another show to scare people off from outing the psyops. Because you've got to keep in mind, after the London Bridge one, there hasn't really been that many, apart from the mass shootings that you get going on in the US. But in general terms, we've not really had many of these ridiculous psyops since the London Bridge bomb attack, the knife attack, because of course everybody showed it to be what it was: theatre. All the actors all these actors that we're finding in the same faces in all these supposedly different terror attacks. So that shocked them. They didn't like that. So of course they took the premier master of the shill, Alex Jones, to court, to task, to scare everybody off even dreaming about promoting or publishing anything in relation to undermining these psyops. Of course, I don't think it's worked, to be quite honest. People can see quite clearly that today you've got Alex Jones pulling in the supreme new mainstream conspiracy media channel, all under his wing. All the usual suspects are being pulled in left, right and centre. It's so obvious what's actually going on there. Doesn't mean he's not putting out some good stuff. He's putting out some good stuff. But it's what he doesn't put out that shows you where the game is going. The Twitter is just full of nonsense to separate the races. Whites against blacks, blacks against whites, Muslims talking garbage everywhere and how they're going to take over the world, enslave the white girls and blah de blah de blah, pretty much Talmud. Interesting stuff. And then also, for synchronicity, an interview that we all knew about, so I think it was about 2006-07 that came out with Abe Finkelstein, Rabbi Abe Finkelstein. Now, when it came out at the beginning, everybody were in awe of it because you could pretty much clearly see that he was actually being absolutely 100% honest about the whole thing. And he was being interviewed by a so-called pastor over there in the US, an evangelical. And in all truth, if you actually watch the interview, or listen to it rather, the only, what you might say, argumentative and attitude from the whole thing was coming from this so-called I'm a man of Jesus pastor, who came off, like he was something special, and the visceral coming from them pretty much showed where he's at. He's become his enemy, as it were. He despised Rabbi Finkelstein, as he made clear often, yet was pushing the same anger, aggression and such. And if you actually did watch that, what's very interesting is basically, if you listen to Rabbi Finkelstein, although it's rather perturbing what he's saying because you know that that's going on, he was actually being exceptionally honest about it. There was no attitude about it. He was being straight. And at one point he actually said, he said, you're not doing it, we are. And I had to think about that. And I thought, well, yeah, to be honest, they are doing it because they can get away with it. And nobody else is doing it. This is why they get away with it, and which is why they're doing it. You really should spend a bit of time actually listening to that interview. Of course, people think it's not real, it's false, etc. But this came out a long time ago, and we used it copiously as citing it and referencing it in many of our reports, papers, etc. that we were putting out 10 years ago. So, it's like anything, isn't it? Me, I move information. That's my job. I'm not here to create a cult. I'm here to move information. Once I've moved information into the public, What happens to that information is none of my business. I'm on to the next thing. So ultimately, it's for you to take on board or not. It's for you to accept or not. It's not in my interest which way you want to think or which way you want to go. I'm just moving the information for you to at least be aware of and determine for yourself whether you think it's value or whether you're too afraid to face the reality of it and shove it aside as a fantasy. It's not really, my job's done. Once I've moved the information, it's done. I've done my job. I'm on to the next gig. And you will make of it as you so wish. And that's the way I work. So, discernment. Use your own. And you decide what you think about these things. Don't be thinking, I want you to believe me. Don't be thinking, I'm telling you out there, you have to believe me because I'm some kind of uber fantastic. Well, I am, of course, fantastic, which we know. But it's still up to you what you want to do. I'm not a religion. I'm not a cult. And freedom is the game, as far as I'm concerned. You're free to see things how you wish to see them. And that's got to be understood by people. Because that is the reality of it. So, interesting. But the synchronicity of everything as it's coming back together, for me, in these few weeks, is just phenomenal. And, of course, what's really buzzed me up this week is the fact that last week, I actually presented the spell. I broke the spell from this gig by pointing out that what were actually going to happen was that they were going to get Iran to attack them and basically blow up the Al-Aqsa Mosque, blame Iran, and of course then it would be a case, it's a sign from God, we must sacrifice the heifer, let's build the temple. And, it flippant as it was, and it's just nothing, as I put it out there last week, that's broken the spell. And in the last few days, the beauty of it is I'm now seeing it all over Twitter. People are pushing that, and that has broken the spell. And I can tell you now, they're not very happy about that. So kudos to me. I'm well happy. That's buzzed me up no end. I like breaking spells. It's no wonder they call me Merlin, is it? So there we go. So that's me bigging myself up a bit there because I am quite content and happy at the fact that now it's being spread all over Twitter. That very fact that that's what they were going on, and it's ruined the little gig. And just as a pointer, just in case, I got the dream last night. The dream that I usually get when the States are coming or calling. So let's see what they might have planned for little old Life in the Mix in the near future. But that might get interesting, indeed. But I've had the dream. Last one I had before that with Trump and Pence, as I've told you. Still don't quite understand it because we were naked and I don't get what that were actually, I still can't get the symbolism of that. But at least this time it was Cameron again, on his own this time, not with his Oppo Osborne as it was the first time in 2014 when they really did make a mess. And it was a very interesting conversation that I had with him, and he gave me a particular name on a piece of paper who's actually running the show in Old Blighty there. Unfortunately, I've forgot the name, and I'll try as I might today, I can't remember it. So I'm thick, I'm useless, because I actually probably got quite some good info last night. Well, actually early hours this morning, and I've ruined it. And I'm not even on the magic cabbage, so what's that all about? So anyway, never mind that. So that's the game as it's been for me in this last couple of days. Very excited because now it's all over Twitter. The spell is broken. So I'm happy. That's good stuff. So, what in the world is going on? And as I said, Australia are not very good at this psyoping, I have to say. Which is good, really. It's quite good. It shows that they're not absolutely pure evil, like all them Johnny come latelys we've got overruling us everywhere and all over the shop. Now, this gig. Okay, we talked about it last week and said that the eclipse was, for them, it was going to be symbolic of a kick-off. This is going to symbolise something changing. We've got this here from Saturday, last night. But do not forget this treaty that's being signed off or voted on at the end of May. Now, I put an interesting video up on the Facebook. I strongly recommend you take a look at that, because it's a guy that's gone through leaked documents showing what it is they're actually after. It's very worrying indeed. We'll say no more about it, but of course what just happened this weekend is going to take all the heat off that. Nobody's going to be paying attention to that. I think Japan are having a mental fit about it, and they are on the streets protesting. And the thing is, that's it. Once you awaken to what it is, you will get excited because it's game over. And it works in sync with 2030, the wind and rain agenda, all this folded into that one particular treaty that they're trying to get together. And a lot have already said, yeah, we're on board, blah, 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 blah. So don't let this, what's happening at the moment, take your attention, because that really does need your attention. It really does indeed. And, you know, that would be my caution at this stage as we're getting closer and closer to May. Okay, so let's have a look. What have I got today? So later as well, I'm going to show you that Zionism wasn't started through Theodore Herzl at the end of the 19th century. It was actually begun in 1694. Very interesting. And it was sent right over to Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. That's where it were. Now we know, anybody that's aware of the Masonic traditions, that Philadelphia was the centre of the Masonic subversion of what was America. So it's not surprising then that what we term the Big Z actually took root and was sent there first. So we'll look at that later. It's a paper. We'll not go through the entire paper because, of course, if you're not into that kind of information, it could become exceptionally boring. But it's a paper, and I will put it up. I'll put a paper up, and of course I'll put it on underneath the video for you to peruse if that takes your fancy. But it's very important that people understand this, because of course when you get into the Iranian elite, they are Masonic. When you get into the Israeli elite, they are Masonic. So is the same for the United States. We know it's the same for the UK, for Germany, for France, Italy, et al. And of course, we fully understand now, do we not, because we've gone through this enough, that what the Jesuits were set up for in the first instance was to subvert the Reformation. And so the Jesuits were the ones that subverted Freemasonry, as it was guilds at the time. But they subverted it, turned it into an occult order. And so we know that the Jesuits actually are the ones controlling what we see as Freemasonry today. But we can also say as well, as we understand, that the Jesuits were actually kicked out of the Vatican, which we know. They were picked up by Catherine the Great, who acted for the Prussian Empire. She killed her husband, and the last Romanov, which again is interesting data, Peter III, her husband, and took over Russia. Annihilated Crimea, including Khazaria, and moved them all into the pogroms to train them for this financial system, so that as the Prussian Empire took over Europe, put the Hanoverians on England, and then was subverting through what they'd set up through this gentleman that we're going to look at after for the Big Z, would then install these program Khazars to set up and administer the financial system on behalf of the Holy See families, which of course we know today to be fully controlled by the Venetians, or Phoenicians as we said. So we've gone through all that. The Jesuits were forced back into the Catholic Church under Napoleon. Napoleon also subverted the Knights of Malta underneath the Jesuits. Remember this, we've got to understand this. The Jesuits became another force operating for another force, or the Holy Roman Empire, as opposed to the Church, and with Napoleon's efforts pretty much subverted what was all the old Catholic knighthoods underneath this Jesuit agenda. We have to keep this in mind, folks. And then of course we know that through the fascists, specifically Mussolini in 1927, They completely usurped the Catholic Church and created the Vatican State, which is the problem. That was done in 27. First the Federal Reserve, 1913. Then the First World War. All the pogroms emptied into England, which had been going on from 1868. Stopped only by an Act of Parliament in 1915. The massive influx of these Khazars from Russia. The Jews that were living here were going crazy because they said these people are not Jewish, we don't know what they are. They killed all our men in the First World War, took over the Masonic lodges. Edward VII had Lord Kitchener change the mandate of Freemasonry from upholding England to upholding the then coming Israel. We've gone through all this stuff. We can see what's happened. It's not a mystery anymore to the Wise Asylum, is it not? So we've gone through all that. Then we had 1933, the bankruptcies. We became the collateral. Our birth certificates were floated on the stock market. Here we are today, ready to be shifted in to the Noahide Ark, the breakaway civilization. And of course, we're not welcome. There's the gig. There's the gig, the Talmudic system pulling in this Noahide system, and it's pulling in all the Aryans across Western Europe, which is what we are. Under the Talmudic system, its priesthood and all the psychopaths that operate for it. And of course now we can see making big moves right now in order to pull all the Aryans and the Arab races into war. Because they want to get rid of us. There's no need for us anymore. Third World War, Albert Pike made it very clear in his letter to Mazzini. We know this. So we don't need to go any further on that. We're up to grade, we're up to date, we understand what they're doing. Do we not? Okay, so let's have a look who's joined us tonight and then we'll crack on. Anthony says, how do Sean and the gang hope all's well? Hello there, Anthony. Jerry says, hi Sean and all in the Wise Asylum. Good evening to you, Jerry. PY says, evening all, good evening Paul. Mew says, good morning, afternoon, evening at Sunday Night Club. Sunday Night Club, it's the Wise Asylum, Jeffrey. Oh, sounding like we're a cult or something. Jace, howdy doody, me old China, nice to see you. Greetings to you, my friend. And iMod says, Jeff, Slipknot. Alright, Sean, Jackie and everyone, good evening to you, Slipknot. BY Music says, hello, Mew Pit, okay. Cos, 1973, Sup Boss, with an emoji with the gigs on. Good evening to you, Cos, me old China. Jay says, hope you're all in good health and feel good too. Well, we didn't take we didn't play the game, so we're all feeling fine. So that's groovy and good. Jerry says the arrival of the second dose has to look like a worldwide event. Of course, this is the second dose. This is the removing of peace from the earth. The first was the magic of Apollyon, was it not? And if you didn't wake up after that mess, see these horses, remember the apocalypse doesn't mean Armageddon, the apocalypse means the great revealing. These are gifts to us, to show us, wake up, look what's happening, you can't go on believing what you believe in, things are not correct. And this one removes the peace from the earth. So yes, it's well on its way, isn't it? So there we go. Cheds one says, was watching a streamer live, fireworks, lol. Yeah, I mean, last night I were on it all night watching it, and honestly, what an absolute blag. Are they getting away with it? I don't know. Or are they getting away with it? Because I haven't really took much notice today, because obviously I've been putting together this fantastic and amazing stream. So, I don't know, I picked it up today, so I don't know whether people are sucking into this or not. The politicians are, of course, but then they would, wouldn't they? Mark says, evening Sean, good evening to you Mark. And Cos says, that shirt is whiter than the Daz Doorstep Challenge. Listen, if you want to keep your whites white, you wash the whites together. You don't put colour with them ever at all. And they will stay gleaming white. But it's this bright light that I have in my eyeballs that makes it gleam. But thanks for picking that up, my old China. PY says, lol Cos. Sheds one says, Iranian Parliament building is a pyramid. You have seen it. From Masonic. They're all Masons. This is a Masonic gig. But of course we know the Jesuits run the Masons So it's a Jesuit gig. It's a Holy Roman Empire gig. It's a Venetian gig. It's Genghis Khan. Yeah, running the 666 grid because man has fallen down to a position that they're all operating under the cube. Anyway, we've done this. We know this crack, don't we? The Lona Riesler. Lona Riesler. One evening from Gower, South Wales. Good evening from South Wales. Nice to see you. Jerry says, yes, Mew, exactly. Oh, okay, he's having a convo. Land Rover says, evening. Okay, so you guys know each other. Good stuff. Jay says, they ignored Yuri Bezmenov too back in the 80s. Well, they ignore everybody, don't they? But you've got to remember, what we're going on pre-2014, all changed. They give all the nut jobs flat earth and away they went. And so much of the data, the information was removed from the Google listings. And of course, you know, it's good because people are now, obviously back in the day, we're collecting, we're recording and copying, and they're slowly releasing all this stuff now. Your next gig to watch for is when they release Julian Assange, because everybody's going to swoon at his feet. Remember that. Julian Assange is one of the biggest shields going. Right? And that's what he's never spent a day in jail. Keep that in mind, folks, because they're going to release him. And then you're going to swoon at his feet. The new mainstream conspiracy network and all the knights thereof are going to swoon at the feet of Assange. He's going to be on every single stream, every interview, bloody podcast, a lot. Don't fall for it, people. Do not fall for it. Where are we? They always ignore the truth, man. Only the nut jobs ignore the truth because they like the fantasy. It's too difficult to actually accept the truth because then you've got to deal with the truth. You know, you can't just play around with the fantasy, spreading it around. I'm sending this over here. I'm doing my job. It's not the way. If you don't get stuck into the reality of the things, and it can be quite traumatic, then how can you expect your actions after to not be supporting the fantasy and, again, obfuscating the truth? You've got to get into the nitty-gritty of it, folks, to really be a valuable voice or script in the gig. Where are we going? Profile X, evening, good evening to you, Profile X. Jay says, especially when it's told straight to the faces. Exactly. Precisely. It's called fear. Fear prevention. And then, you know, as you're going through this stuff, you might remember, oh, Alex said that, or they said that, Joe said that. Oh, it must not be true then. That's the way it works. You know, they know how the human mind works. He's better off being a man. They can't control man, but they can control the human, the shade of man. So where are we? Hang on. Yep. First time I've heard of that interview you put out, Sean. Yeah, I mean, this is old stuff, Jeff. And this is what we were dealing with way back in the day when there were loads of information out everywhere. 2014, they hit everybody that mattered and gave all the guys that were onto the law the flat earth. And they all disappeared, never to be seen again, until they'd seen Game of Thrones and the Ice Wall. Then they were off again, shoving it out and throwing it down people's necks. Not that I'm saying it's not flat. I don't know these things. You know, I've looked at what they're saying. I've looked at the science, and it's clear that quite a lot of the heliocentric science does seem to fall apart. That's a fact. But then they take a massive leap of nonsense and say, yeah, because there's an ice wall. There's no evidence of that outside Game of Thrones. None. So they're no better. If the heliocentric model is fake, then they're not doing any better with that leap of nonsense. Let's be honest about it. Do we know? No, I don't. I know that I don't know. And as I've said, know thyself, which means know what you don't know as much as you know what you know. Very important. Then you know yourself. You're not pretending. You're not blagging yourself and pretending you know more than you do. You're not going to push nonsense then, are you? You know? 100% says the Lon Rizzler. Big E, hello peeps, hope all are well and thriving in defiance mode. Well, yes, hello Big E, how you doing, mate? Permanent state for me, unfortunately. Profiler X, Park's third phase has started. But also, you've got to contemplate the fact that there's a lot. The CIA paper that came out with quite silent weapons for quiet wars was speaking in terms of the Third World War actually being that silent war, the subversion, etc. Is this just the cult? This is just the cool side of that, isn't it? You know. Jerry says, in fairness, Sean, you have given me back the bit between the teeth. I'd taken the foot off the pedal. Well, it gets a bit, doesn't it, after a bit, you know? I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. And it's, you know, there are times when you just think, can I have a rest? But you can't, can you? It's impossible to actually stop when you know, especially if you've got offspring. You know, what are you leaving your offspring if you sat on your backside and play with yourself? You know? It's like Rabbi Finkelstein said, the white race are cowards. Because they'll only do something if they're told to do it. You know, it's a soldier's mindset. I need to be told. A warrior does it all by himself. Yeah, he works from within. He's his own man, the lone wolf, the lone warrior. You don't take orders or wait for orders. You're on the mission, and you're on the mission all by yourself. And that is a problem, that the white race has become so dependent on the systems we've created because we believe it to be civilization. The Talmudists have certainly made great work of that, have they not? Let's have a look, where are we? Even up here yet, lol. The sun is not even up here yet, lol. Oh, you're a good one, Jace. I'll tell you what, you're hardcore, mate, and I do thank you for it. I forgot to thank the mods last week, but I do thank you, and I know you're there, and you do a good job, because we never get fruit bats getting any further than a crap comment, so well done for that. Where are we? Jerry says, may be significant in the times and ritually. May be insignificant in the times and ritually. Well, I mean, you've got to do it at your own pace, haven't you? You've got to. You can't burn out. If you're burnt out, you're not going to be functioning properly at all, are you? So lately, I give myself a break now and again, and I'll just jump on a tune, and that for me is a break. It's quite. I love it actually. Lewis says, evening Lewis, funny that you bring up the point of Z as concept starting earlier than what the mainstream says. This is the main point that people use to try to debunk the Pope Masonry. Albert Pike's 3. Yeah, exactly. This is going to be an interesting paper. And as I've said, we'll not go through the lot because it'll bore people stupid. But you'll get the gist of what I'll say, and the rest is there for you to cover. I mean, books have been written about this guy, but not in this context. And I'm even going to give you his code name. How about that? But interesting where he comes from. Very interesting in relation to when you look at what Johnny Come Latelys we've got claiming to be our royal family. Oh, makes sense. Jerry says, beautiful info. Good stuff. It's all a business plan. You damn right it is. And especially the book script. That was one hell of a business plan. How to demolish economies. And now what have they done? Bleat on. Brexit's done it. Look what Brexit's done. Brexit's now been implemented. The High Court prevented Boris from proroguing Parliament. Simple as. Brexit wasn't implemented. And Boris didn't give a toss anyway, if you listen to his former girlfriend. And she said clearly that Boris that we saw during that script wasn't the Boris that she had a relationship with. So yeah. Untitled says, Life in the Mix, hello Sean and everyone, good evening to you. Untitled. The Lone Rizzler. Okay. Oh, good, we all know each other, that's good. Star Twinkle. You changed your number. No, darling, Giftgaff have killed it. They've wrecked it, they've gone, they won't put it back together. Do you know why? I went in for a competition for 180 grand and I had a right good feeling about it. And then Johnny come lately's killed it before I could have my phone rang and win it. That's my planning, that's what I see. But yeah, no, they won't put it back on, it's gone. That's all my work contacts, everything gone. In a flash. So that's gone and dusted and dusted, unfortunately. Jew says, evening all, checked in late, sorry, show me old China, not a problem, Jew. We don't mind. It's truancy we're not very keen on, you know what I'm saying? And persistent truancy. You know, detentions may be coming out at some point, but not for that. You can be late, that's fine. The Lone Loser says, 1694, very interesting year. The jaw was busy, little bees. Absolutely. Mark says, how are you doing, Sean and all? Good evening to you, Mark. We're doing well, and we hope you're doing well as well. Sense Offender says, hey up. Hey up, Sense Offender. Solver Mist. Hello, Solver Mist. Keep the gravy coming, good work. I suppose it's no sun up where you are as well, my old China. Thank you very much for getting up so early. Well done. Sense Offender says, truth is an inconvenience. We all want a perfect life. But we have to have responsibilities. It's all part of the test to sort out the wheat from the chaff. Well, the main thesis of everything I teach is the more you take responsibility for everything that's happening in your life and cease blaming others, take responsibility for what you do. You know, the spirit world doesn't care about the why, it cares about the what. What did you do? Not why you did it, because there's 1,000, oh, look what he did to me, look what they said and they forced me. No, spiritually it's judged on what did you do in the face of whatever you were facing. What did you do? The court system's a similar kind of thing as well. It's more interested in what rather than the why. It might listen to the cry of the why, but it's going to judge you on the what. What did you do? What didn't you do? What did you say? What didn't you say? You know, and that's a good measure for responsibility. It's the what. What did you do, not why you did it. Do you know what I'm saying? That's the gig, so absolutely. Anthony says, I heard it here first. Alright, mate. Where are we? Ayo, yep, done, blah, blah, blah. Jay says, the shape of the earth is irrelevant. Well, of course it's irrelevant. What do we care? We walk, if you fall down it hurts, birds are tweet, dogs do their shitting everywhere. Life's good. What more do we want? Who cares whether it's rain, square, or what? How does that actually affect us? It doesn't, does it? You know. An excellent distraction, though. Absolutely, it took all the boys that were onto the law off it. It was perfect for them. It must have been moulded for them boys specifically, you know. But then when you're studying law, your brain does go to a bit left brain. Do you know what I'm saying? It's quite difficult to. You can't call yourself normal when you're totally in tune with how the law works. But it's also the way you can see the nonsense of the elites and just how pathetic they really are, just by studying the law. Ultimately, it's just another belief-based division triggering psyop. Yeah, of course. Fall for it at your peril. Yes, you're welcome, boss. Glad to do it. Thanks, Jace. Yeah, and Paul. Jerry says, month of May. Soz, context. Well, remember, the height of the satanic calendar is April the 30th. That's Walpurgis Night. And May the 1st is the Satanic New Day, which is why so many of these big global things have the celebration day on May the 1st, Soviet Union, etc., etc. Yeah, so we're heading in. We're in a ritual now already. The ritual for April has begun. This is what this is. 19th of April is a fire sacrifice, remember, so we've that to come yet. So what that's going to show itself, we'll have to see. But we are now in the satanic ritual which leads up to the Walpurgis Night, April the 30th. The height of their sacrificial rites. Not that they don't do it all the time, but they do. But this is a full ritual starting now. I do actually have a piece I used to have on my website. It's going through all the ritual dates. I'll seek it out. I'll put it up as a paper on the website and I'll put it underneath this video. And you've got to get to about the 5th of May to get away from the energies that they're creating for the next raft. Because that's the new year. You know, so they're pulling in everything that they've achieved in the last year, the satanic year, in readiness for the start of the new year. So this ritual that we're getting now is the what we call what's that word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. They're collecting everything they've gained while setting off the beginning for the next year. So that's what we're in right now. This is why this is happening. And of course, the double bubble, they had the eclipse because they're psychotic about these kind of things, you know. The big Z's roots are around 1530, so I thought I'm here to be educated. I thought I'm here to be educated. Well, if you've got sort of data to show that that's the case, that's fine. It does work in sync with the fact that this is when we had Henry VIII on the throne. So I wouldn't denounce that, but I haven't got data to present to the Wise Asylum in relation to that. So if you do, please send it along and I will take a look at it and perhaps we will present it. Jay says the same with the protocols of the Z. I mean, people don't read them. You have to read them. It is the script of the 20th century in its entirety. In its entirety. The hindsight that we have now that we're away from the 20th century, you read them, it is the 20th century. So how people can turn around and say they're fake. Look, they were ruled of forgery by a court. What is a forgery when you understand the English language? It's the copy of an original. So how people run around going, oh, they're fake, they're not real. It was a forgery. It was a copy of an original. Yeah, this is the problem we have. People don't understand the language. You don't understand the words. This is why the words will just beat you. This is why law bedazzles you. You have to understand the language. So yeah, fair point there. Michael Jr., hi all, another great show. Hello Michael, thank you very much. Sense offender, life is short because it's a test. Of course, you're here temporary and you can't take a single thing with you. Nothing. Nothing at all. Nobody, you know. You come in here screaming naked and in most cases you go out, no matter what heights you've reached, you'll go out a screaming old man or woman, naked, being prodded, usually now, by people in white coats. If you're lucky. If you're not lucky, they might be after your organs. Then you're in trouble. But it's not usually going to be happening of an age that's more a risk for the younger generations, you know. And keep this in mind, folks. If you didn't do the dance, they might want your body parts. So you've got to be extra vigilant. You know, that's the dark side of not playing the game. Keep that in mind too, people. What equals fact, whereas Y is speculative, says Jace. Treen, hi Sean, it's a miracle I've got on for about 10 minutes without a buffer. Well done, Treen. Hi all. I've not been ignoring your emails, darling. I've just been so engrossed in this law stuff at the moment. It's quite ridiculous. So I'm not ignoring you, darling, and I do look at what you sent me. Thank you. What's your website address, Sean? The Bridge, one word, lifeinthemix.info. I'll put the document up after and it will take you to the website. Oh, actually, you can't get off these documents to the website. So, lowercase, The Bridge, lifeinthemix.info. That's the website. Which reminds me, I have to pay for that. Oh. So donations are always welcome, folks. Where are we there? Jay says, good point, Kraken. Though they do seem to take kids every step of the way all throughout. Yeah, if your parents are crap and you're ending up in care. Ooh. Link the website, Jace, so Solve can grab it. Good idea. Can somebody do that? Can you do that, Jace, me old China? Because I can't actually speak in this chat. I thought I'd solved it actually this week, but it's still telling me I have to sign in, so I don't know what it's doing. PY says, hello, Treen. Jerry says, you can find it in description, Solvimus. Treen says, 15th of April, blood sacrifice. We are in a big ritual from April. I will put that up as a paper and put it under this. It might be made midweek, but it's well worth a look. I think I have covered it actually in one of my older videos on this channel. Don't ask me which one because I can't even remember what I've done in half of my videos anyway. Because as I've said, once I've done the moving of the info, I'm on to something else. Yeah, I probably could do better actually. It would make it easier for folk, but Hi Jerry, she's buffing already. Oh dear. You shouldn't have said no, Trin. You shouldn't have said no. Profiler X. Moses Hess played a big part in the setup of communism and Z, and Karl Marx, Mordechai Levi, was inspired by him, and Hess got his inspiration from the Zohar, which is an important part of the Kabbalah. It is indeed. The Midrash is where you see the fruit bat. That's where you can see there they've just found old data and conjoined it to make it go, it's us! It's us it's talking about! We are the chosen! Jerry says, stop those background programs, Stream, change the mode. Sense offender, maximum consent makes the law. Whatever you accept, you consent to. Precisely. They've got to get you into a contract. They've got to get joinder from you. They've got to get you exchanging gibberish. Then, as far as they're concerned, you're in. They've got you. You've agreed that they've got power, they've got authority, and they're going to have you. That's the one. So Jace has put it up. There's the link. Thanks, Jace. Good man, Jace. Right, with that, let's crack on, because you know me, I can yammer. Right, where are we? So, this is Aussies not being right good at psy-hopping. So, we have another image, but I forgot to put it up actually, where the Australian police have been trained to do CPR on the stomach. And of course we know that that's how you do CPR, isn't it? So it's looking like a major psy-op. Doesn't mean people haven't been hurt, but the event in and of itself is a psy-op. Now, around 6 o'clock our time, UK time, yesterday, it was released that they believed they'd identified the knife man. Now, bearing in mind that once this happened, Tommy the Tit Robinson was up and down giving it, oh, jihad this and the jihad that, and I've got to go to court, give me 200 grand. So Tommy the Tit's learning very well from the grabbler mentality, is he not? Shafting everybody, trying to get his loyal fans to give him cash, because he probably wants more cocaine over there in Tenerife. So he was identified as Benjamin Cohen. Okay? Cohen being, of course, a rabbi. It's the chief priest of the Levites. So, and as the terrorists in the Sydney shopping centre knife attack in Australia that left 6 dead and a baby in critical condition. Now, that's what came out initially. Now, were they hiding that? Because the police actually came out and said, knife-wielding man who killed 6 people in the Sydney shopping centre before being shot dead has been identified by Australian police. Bearing in mind, when he was shot dead, the knife had miraculously disappeared out of his hand. So, because of course he was squashing the bag of blood, is the way these psyops operate. But we don't know, we're only having a look. And he's now called Joel Couchy, 40, and he walked through the crowded Westfield Bondi Junction complex on Saturday afternoon, fatally wounding 5 women and a man. A 9-month-old baby was among several others injured and remained in a serious but stable condition on Sunday, police said. Now, I saw the guy who were being interviewed that were walking out after he'd just been with this baby full of blood, and he walked out looking like he'd just come out of a posh gig. No blood, nothing. So I suggested in Australia as a comment, oh, has he had a wash? So the guy that held the baby, because he'd had it thrown at him and he were bringing it back to life, stopping it bleeding, didn't have a single spot of blood on him, but they interviewed him anyway. Yeah. And authorities say the attack's most likely related to a mental health of the individual involved. So it wasn't his yaddy. It could have been a Cohen, and maybe they're hiding that fact because, of course, everybody has to believe that the chosen ones are fantastic, amazing, and lovely. So Australia, well done for being so shit at psyops. We like it. Nothing in there. And so, of course, that's the image of today. The chess game has now moved to Iran and Israel, so that's 2 different branches of the Masons. Oh, how jolly. Oh, and of course, Israel's queen is knocked over because, of course, they've been bombed to death, yet I haven't seen any signs of that apart from, like you said, fireworks or perhaps Project Bluebeam. But we'll have to wait and see. We're not making statements of fact. We are merely investigating what is available and making sort of like judgments based on what we know. There's obviously more to come, so we can't make statements of fact. Now, the ritual, as it continues, i.e. being, let's have a look at them Johnny-come-latelys calling themselves the royal family. No, I've got the wrong one. I think I showed this last week, but look, there's a picture there of two clearly different Camillas. One actor, they say, one actual. And Camilla does appear to have taken over the whole gig. Does she not, at the present? So, again, I think that's pretty clear that they are two different people. The same with William. Of course, it's been said many times in the past that he was replaced, so too Harry. And I have to say, the nose is completely different, and noses do not change. They get bigger as the ears get bigger, but the structure do not change. That's the young William, and that's the imposter. And of course, Edward now, the failed Marine, has accepted his post with a degree of trepidation as he takes over Colonel of the Scots Guard in a ceremony in London, and he's gained some medals. So I don't know what he's done. Did he do an assault course? He's got medals. There we go. And his wife, interestingly, with Nicole Junkerman, who flew into the UK on the arm of Jeffrey Epstein a few months after 9/11 to meet with Lex Wessner and two US senators. No one in the British MSM is interested enough to ask the royal family about their connections. So there we go. I bet them handbags cost a fortune. I wonder which children it made them out of. So that's a ritual. Not much going on, of course, but then there's lots going on because, of course, they're not upholding England. Boris says shameful to call for the UK to end arms sales to Israel. And, of course, this was before the latest blag. So old Boris there, he's big on arms. He wants more arms sales. I mean, of course, and you know, if you're dealing in arms, people, then you need wars. Otherwise, you've no sales. And Britain won't stop selling arms to Israel, says the Cameroon, who came to visit me in my dream this morning. And we even had a Chinook side of us, and the lot, it was a proper full gig, so I'm expecting some nonsense down the line. And he says, no, we're not stopping. No, we won't stop selling arms to Israel. No. And this, again, is before the gig, the latest blag. And, of course, you went over to see the trumpet, and now that he's gone noble, Lord David Cameron telling US Congress what they must do. And there's the trumpet saying, well, no, I'm King Cyrus. Sod off. And there's some interesting pictures and images and videos of King Trump there being moved around in his states as though he's the president. Oh, look what's happened. Look what they've gone and done. They've gone and knocked down another ULEZ camera. Them naughty southerners. They're very naughty, them southerners, these days. They used to be southern pufters, but now they seem to be beating the old northern Vikings. So I don't know what's going on there. But well done, southern pufters. And of course the Khan, Hammer drives even more while denying all knowledge of it. He's good at that. Hidden in the undisclosed building in Transport for London's sprawling property network, a team of engineers is developing a secret new road charging system. Well, it's not a secret. The Rothschilds pitched for the motorways 15 years ago. We knew that it's coming in. That's what they want. Pay to drive. Oh, there he is looking like a pirate. This is his pirate mode as he tries to excite the Sikh community. Because it's crucial, he says, and the contribution to the capital, economically, socially, and who cares, because we don't want to listen to it anymore. But there he is, doing his pirate mode. What an ugly critter he is, isn't he? I mean, he looks like he's on smack. And look at that. That's an English copper. Can you see the creep of it? The no-hide judges. 21st degree Prussian Knight. Scottish Rite Freemasonry. This is who they work for. Private companies, ladies and gentlemen. And he's at it again. The Scottish smackhead, he said, furious SNP quietly bans wood-burning stoves from new build homes in Scotland in the Green Drive. This includes gas boilers and oil heaters. There was everyone on electricity as it's easier to control and switch off. They do indeed want everybody on electricity, and Lucifer is well known for saying he will take control of the world through electricity. Senior Tories urge Rishi Sunak, or Tonto Sunak, to take Britain out of European Convention on Human Rights after landmark decision. Okay, so there we go on that. What else is coming up with these nutters? So this, of course, is Chalco Westminster at its finest. And ULEZ fails to ease congestion as London is stuck in worse traffic than 5 years ago. Do you mean he's been telling fibs? And it's not about easing congestion. Well, I never. He's a fib teller. He's a fib teller, just like that other one up there in Aggie Squeezer land. I don't know. Canna's got a what? Something only a mother could love. Could a mother love that? And here's our finest in Dorset. The Noah-hired fruit bats. I mean, while we have fruit cakes like them two on England, this crap ain't going to stop. And when Britain went to war to liberate the Falkland Islands, did you know Israel sold weapons to the Argentinians? Anyone calling themselves a patriot and supporting Sunak fighting for Israel is actually a traitor. And as I've said, I were down at Browning Barracks after the Falklands and I saw the injuries that have been carried out there. It was a bad war. I bet you'll be proper choice after I do something naughty to your husband, says an exceptionally ugly thing who's obviously promoting that LBG and K stuff. So Fruit Bats United, there they go, after your husbands. And back to Boris the blonde bombshell we go. World news. Vatican declares transgender surgery should never be attempted. Well, I believe he's in hospital again, isn't he? And who else is in hospital? Somebody else has been wazzed into hospital. Be careful, they'll have him on a Liverpool pathway. Don't forget, your class is elderly. They're over 50. It's a good job I'm only 22. Sheesh, I'll tell you what, it's a good job. The UK and the US have announced that new aluminium, copper and nickel produced by Russia will no longer be traded at the world's two largest metal exchanges. So they're still kicking Vlad's head in there. Well, they have to pretend the blag, you know. We've to tell everybody they're all best mates. And that one there is a soft coup. It's not good, is all I can say. But it's all about the wind and rain, isn't it? It's shifting, have you noticed? Because I don't think they can get away with the other in the way they did before, because, of course, yeah. So keep your eyes on that, chaps. And there he is again. He's a strange fella. And it's all about wind and rain now. Yeah. Oh dear, yeah. So now they want water. It's water. Water now needs to be controlled as a duty of care, which is Codex Alimentarius, as I told you last week. And necrophilia is harmless. The Greens candidate called for legal sex with corpses in Australia after it was revealed he campaigned to change the law to allow bestiality. Yeah, what a strange fruit bat there. Aussies. Come on, Aussies. What's going on? What is going on there? And 86 House Republicans vote for warrantless surveillance of Americans. That's the Trumpets Brigade. Oh, when this right get in, I'll tell you what, you're going to see the big Z. Oh, man. I mean, you think the communists were bad. And heads we win, tails we win, as both antagonists there are lighting the same candles for the usual suspects. So, what a blag on all them men that are being killed on the Russian side and on the Slavic side. And Elon Musk says most disinformation on X comes from the West, not from Russia. Well, I'm banned to death on there, and now fellow tweeters are noticing that I'm banned, and that's good, because I'm banned to death. What's up, Elon? What's up? And back we go to the old Popey. I don't know. Now then, a bit of climate. Oh, wait a minute, heroes. Argentina's president pledges roadmap for UK to hand over the Falklands. And now we know who runs him, don't we? Because we've seen it paraded about. And of course, remembering the same crew that he works for was supplying Argentina with weapons while our lads were getting snotted all over the shore. And remember, Coal Light owned Port Stanley. Port. Argentina is caught between the US and China in battle over Beijing's space base. But hang on a minute. Who are his best mates? and he's been to the wall, and he's worn the hat. It's just a big game, innit? It's a game, it's theatre, and if you're not seeing beyond it, you're going to get sucked into it. It's just theatre. And yeah, there he is, he wants the Falklands back. So, now then, climate. How carbon emissions have changed since 2000. US and Europe, 16%, other countries, 53%, India, 155%, and China, 208%. But yet, we're the ones that are having to be shoved under this new tax, while China and India get away scot-free. Well, I wonder who owns them companies over there. And all carbon's world emissions. Look at little UK there, 0.9%. Big red China there, 30.9, India 7.3, US 30.5. I don't believe that US is doing 30.5 because we used to look at that map, did we not? Germany 1.5, Italy 0.9. Climate change uncharted territory fears after record hot March. Record hot March? It just pissed down. I'll tell you what a record hot March. The day they announced the old lockdowns and then it was sunny, red hot, the day after until they shut them down, the lockdowns. Is that not weather control? Or is God really on their side? Study finds CO2 is greening the earth and making vegetation flourish worldwide. Well, yes, it does. Because without it, everything dies. But if you're a fruit bat and thick, you're going to believe it. And you're going to let them push in this one world order. And whenever I ask for real data about climate crisis, I'm inundated with might and could and perhaps and predictions say and experts think. And eventually, and you are a heretic. But no actual data. A cynic might wonder if it exists at all, says the Flossie. Alright, well you're right, Flossie. You're right to look like that. Right, we're going to set this going. It's a tune again, but I just want you to have a look at this because it sets the scene. And then we're going to look at what the big old Z is really all about.
It starts with Israel attacking Iran. The plan is for either Iran or for China to retaliate after Iran is struck with a nuclear weapon. At that point, there will be a limited nuclear exchange in the Middle East, followed by a ceasefire. He heard this being planned in this meeting. This is being choreographed. The idea is that as the world looks upon this with horror, then they will demand from their governments that there are heavy controls over travel, over communication, over people who meet, over people who protest in the streets. And because people will be driven into fear by this, they'll request and demand and insist on heavy controls from their governments, which will be justified. And this is where you're going to kind of get the martial law situation in all the Western countries.
no. They simply say no. And that's what we all should do. Because this will end if we simply say no. They simply say no. And that's what we all should do. Because this will end if we simply say no. And that's what we're here to do today. They simply say no. And that's what we should do. Because this will end if we simply say no. No.
And this is where you're going to kind of get the martial law situation in all the Western countries. And then, he said, then the real war starts.
There we go. Fruit Bats United everywhere. There you go. How could you possibly pick a side? Yeah, you pick one side, you've obviously got an opposition. It's just ridiculous. These people are infants. And anybody that sucks into this, you are an infant. I don't care what your belief is. I don't care who your God is. If you're sucking into that and you're picking a side, you are an infant. And there we go. So that's the fruit bats as they play the ritual, as they head up to the height of the year and the New Year's Eve, readying for the next satanic year. So, aren't they fruit bats? Every single one of them. But look at all them fruit bats from UK giving it. Well, attacker, who are these people? They don't represent us. Who are they? Well, there we go. They've took us over whether we like it or not. Right. So, here we go. Now, you may have heard of the woman in the wilderness. You may not. And it's Johannes Kelpius. Okay. So, in 1895, self-taught historian Julius Frederick Sasch published what is still considered the definitive work on the subject of Johannes Kelpius and the woman in the wilderness, the German Pietists of provincial Pennsylvania. This work kept extant, important and unique information on the subject and has been used by virtually all American writers and researchers since then. Unfortunately, some of the information in this work has been proven to be incorrect. Now, of course, this is a book, because, of course, they were hiding the reality of what it was really all about. The most significant error made was the placement of the birth date of Kelpius as 1673, a date which suggested the young man received his master's degree at the age 16 and led his band of spiritual seekers to America at age 20. Evidence which has been known for centuries in Germany proves that Kelpius was actually born in 1667, giving him a postgraduate degree at 22 and leadership at 26. Happily, it also means that Kelpius lived to be 41 and not 35, as American researchers and scholars have stated for well over 100 years. This information, as well as other newly discovered information on the early life of Kelpius, awaits academic publication. Please follow the links on the left to informative material, including a transcription of newly discovered, to the west at least, documents written by a student of Kelpius while still in Transylvania. So this guy himself originated in Transylvania. Vlad Dracul, Vlad the Impaler, Charlie Boy, Queenie Girl, Queenie Mothery Girl, the Horde Priestess. At the time of writing The Woman in the Wilderness, all material extant in the US placed Kelpius' birth at 1673, and that was the date used in the novel. The photo shows a detail of painting of Kelpius that has been attributed to his contemporary and friend Christopher Witt. Looks like a bird. Looks like a woman. Well, it might well have been. So, that's, for people that are aware of this stuff, the tradition, etc., these are the kind of books that have been written about him, and so he's a well-known geezer. But, of course, what they're obfuscating is the following. So this comes directly from those in the tradition, if you're initiated high enough. Now, so this is mine. It says, what the books will not communicate when it comes to the mystics in America is the following. In 1683, the Society of the Woman in the Wilderness was established. Curtis, which is his code name, and his followers focused on ancient wisdom, esoteric practices, and the teachings of Jesus in the Americas. Curtis assumed the identity of Johannes Kelpius, a name crafted by combining elements of his own name and the name of Johannes Kepler. In 1694, Curtis, now known as Johannes Kelpius, guided the Society of the Women in the Wilderness to Pennsylvania. However, the members of the society failed to understand what Curtis wanted, which was ultimately to lead the transformation of the society into the Zionistic Brotherhood. In 1694, Curtis ended the Woman in the Wilderness, transforming it into the Zionistic Brotherhood. The Brotherhood's teachings, rituals and practices attracted people drawn to the allure of spiritual enlightenment and the transformative power of the psychedelic experiences facilitated by Curtis. However, as the Brotherhood grew and evolved, Curtis erected a tombstone bearing the name Johannes Kelpius. Curtis revealed the truth to selected members of the Brotherhood and named these the Masters of the Zionistic Brotherhood for the years to come. During the late 17th century and into the early 19th century, the Zionistic Brotherhood attracted numerous seekers of truth who were captivated by their mystical teachings, communal lifestyle, and the promise of spiritual enlightenment. In Havenwood, the Brotherhood established a close-knit community under the guidance of Myrtle Bias Reynolds. Within the Brotherhood, there were notable individuals who played key roles in nurturing the community's growth. Among them was Lucian St. Clair, an adept alchemist. Now, St. Clair's Scottish brethren, we know these people, don't they? Roslin Chapel. Around 1733, the church sought to solidify its control over the region. They targeted the Brotherhood and the church orchestrated a raid on Havenwood. The church authorities captured 10 members of the Brotherhood and their skins were forcibly removed as a grim symbol of the church's dominance and their disdain for magic. Lucian St. Clair launched a daring assault on Father William Harrington and his armed retinue. However, Lucian found himself beset by a storm of bullets. His body racked with pain and his life was taken away. In the following years, the Zionistic Brotherhood entered a period of clandestine resistance, led by Curtis and Mayor Alexander Bradford. The surviving members devoted themselves to rebuilding their community. They established hidden sanctuaries, intricate codes and clandestine rituals became their shield against the church's relentless hunt. As the 18th century unfolded, the Zionistic Brotherhood transcended the confines of Pennsylvania, their clandestine networks spanning continents and connecting kindred souls. In the 20th century, Harvey Spencer Lewis united two Illuminati circles and the Zionistic Brotherhood and merged them into a new entity, the ancient and mystical order Rosicrucian or Amorc. So, this is where the system that they formed that became Zionism was out of Transylvania. So you're talking about like the Bohemian system, you know, this free love and filth and all the shit that came with it, that pretty much was the backdrop to the 60s LSD cult. Fictionist Kelpius, Wyland and the Transformation. Although stories and legends of Kelpius and his community circling around the German town and Philadelphia area, possibly since the group arrived in America, the first known piece of literature, influenced by the story, is significantly called one of the first American novels. According to Wikipedia, the author Charles Brockden Brown, 1771-1810, is generally regarded by scholars as the most ambitious and accomplished US novelist before James Fenimore Cooper. He is the most frequently studied and republished practitioner of the early American novel, or the US novel between 1789 and roughly 1820, a crucial figure in US literature and culture of the 1790s and 1800s, and a significant public intellectual in the wider Atlantic print culture and public sphere of the era of the French Revolution. So this is where you can see the mystical side of the Holy See families, or the Venetians, moving into the Americas ready for the American Civil War, which basically removed the control of the America from the English and Germanic families that had set up with the cotton industries, and of course that then also gave the north of England, specifically Lancashire, its power and might to keep the south away and London. So of course the American Civil War was not only about taking over America, but it was also about removing the power and might of the north of England, which they succeeded very well indeed. And it's why so many of these mills that were up here towards the end of it were actually all Jewish owned. So that's just an insight to this character, which probably many people have heard of. As I said, we're not going to go through it all because it would bore the living pants off most people, but I will put the paper underneath for those that are interested to peruse. So he was born in Transylvania, and of course the birthplace of the infamous Vlad the Impaler. But Vlad the Impaler, in and of himself, before he went insane, was the man that kept the Saracen or the Turk out of Europe. So he did a good job. Just had a strange way of doing it. And then he'd gone so twisted, he used to bathe in the blood of anybody and everybody he liked to murder. So he was quite a fruit bat. And of course, Charles the Big Ears and his clan descend from that guy. And of course, you've got Vlad the Impaler over there in Russia trying to mimic the same gig. So there we go. Latinized Kelp's name to Kelpius, so he was named Kelps or Kelp, and he was one of the most charismatic figures in German Pietism. At the time was Johann Jacob Zimmermann. Oh, Zimmermann! I wonder what name that relates to. A brilliant mathematician, astronomer, and cleric. And again, if you go back to what Abe Finkelstein were telling us, he said clearly they took over America and created the Civil War. He's quite right. He's quite right. And this is the subversion that came in first, you know. It's all clever stuff, people. It's all clever stuff. And it says one of the most charismatic figures of German Pietism was Johann Jacob Zimmermann, a brilliant mathematician, astronomer, and cleric. Zimmermann had been dismissed from his position as a Lutheran minister for preaching that the Lutheran Church was the Antichrist. In the years following his dismissal and subsequent exile, Zimmermann formed a small group named the Chapter of Perfection. This group was composed mostly of young men like Kelpius, who was then barely 20 years old. Among the beliefs of this group was a conviction that a new spiritual age was dawning, their version of the 1,000-year rule of the returned Christ, and that it was necessary to prepare themselves and others for its arrival. This conviction was reinforced by Zimmermann's unquestionable skill as an astronomer and his assertion that this new age was foretold in the heavens. And so, of course, you can now see theosophy. Yeah? Probably around 1692, the Chapter of Perfection received an anonymous offer of free land in Pennsylvania and free passage there. America was regarded by the young Pietists to be the land of untainted by the sins of European decadence, and the ordained place to await the final drama of mankind. So this is where Francis Bacon's The New Atlantis comes into play. You can see it now becoming a physical reality. So Francis Bacon presented it in the book The New Atlantis America, and here we can see how they actually intended and began to carry that out. August 1693, near the time the group was about to depart for America, Zimmermann died, leaving the young Kelpius as the group's spiritual leader. Kelpius was determined to complete Zimmermann's mission, and after a remarkable sea voyage, the group arrived in the infant city of Philadelphia. And I said that before, Philadelphia is very well known to have been the Masonic centre in North America, or on North America. And of course, Canada, you might say, a bit like Scotland has run the British Isles while blaming England. Well, Canada was running the Hanoverian or Prussian entrance into North America, and Philadelphia was the main centre of that for quite some time. Eventually, Kelpius led his group to a ridge above the Wissahickon Gorge, one of the oldest geologic formations in North America. There, along the 40th parallel, Kelpius constructed a 40-foot square tabernacle, 40 in his esoteric philosophy being a number of the highest mystical significance. And there he is again, looking like a bird. They shared the benefits of a liberal education with the local settlers and served as teachers, healers, religious leaders, lawyers, philosophers and scientists. Perhaps to avoid adding to the widespread conflict among many other religious sects that flourished at the time. Kelpius' community had no special name or tenets. They were often referred to collectively as the woman in the wilderness, likely in reference to a passage in the biblical book of Revelation, but perhaps as a code phrase understood only to the initiated. For about 10 years the community flourished, but the inherent conflict between a desire for spiritual seclusion and a desire to serve the fellow man proved to undermine their focus. Many of the members left and joined the burgeoning population of nearby Germantown. Kelpius himself became ill with tuberculosis and slowly declined in health. There is no official record of his death, but he is thought to have died in 1708 at the age of 41. So Hanoverians are then in on England, and you can see then the Prussians taking over pretty much everything at the Holy Roman Empire as it was. Kelpius left behind a collection of original hymns, a journal that includes many of his correspondences, and the authorship of a book on prayer and meditation. A remarkable account recorded about 20 years after his death suggests that Kelpius had possessed the legendary philosopher's stone, the mythical element that can cure all human ills. Well, it didn't cure him, did it? Having no one to, or did it? You see, they like to fake the death, don't they? Because they move on to another gig. Having no one to whom to entrust his powerful substance after he died, Kelpius ordered a mysterious box to be thrown into the deep waters where the Wissahickon Creek empties into the Schuylkill River. The story goes on to say that when the box struck the water, there was an explosion with flashes of lightning and peals like unto thunder, saith the Lord. So there's the man. The Kelpius Society is promoting new research and the restoration of Kelpius' unique community. I'll bet they have been, and Theodore Herzl has played a pretty big part in that. So here it just goes through other works that cite this group and this man. Romania's in there. Francis Bacon, again, the New Atlantis Sea. This document is important in many ways. First, it further proof Kelpius was born in Dindendorf, Dalia or Dea. Second, it documents his whereabouts in 687. And third, it contains an intriguing reference to the New Atlantis and possible allusion to the work by Francis Bacon. Well, of course it does. So this is how they got in there. It's all been a big blag. And as we looked at, the Stanleys here were the ones that put the Tudors on the throne, and the Stanleys worked for the House Pallavicini, who we looked at last week. So there we go. And here's just further data if this kind of tradition takes your fancy. And then there's quite a bit more data here as well. So we'll not go through it, but there's quite a bit to look at if this is your gig. Quakers involved in there. Well, we know Quakers began what became Barclays. Their signature was a locust. I've got a piece on that. I'll put that up as well under this. A lot of people think the Quakers are something they're not. Big bankers are the Quakers. So I've got here. Okay, so it's quite a bit to look at, if this is your thing, but it's just probably, we've got through, I think, the main points that I wanted to get across. Your Rosicrucians in there a little bit as well. Joanna Eleanor Peterson. Yeah, childbearing of the apocalypse and the new Church of Israel in Jerusalem by the Jews, blah, blah, blah. It's all there to be seen, and you can see that all these societies, these secret societies, have been for nothing other than to subvert the Reformed Protestant Reformation. Not good. And indeed, to subvert the actual Catholic Church, or Aryan Church as it was originally. It's no wonder we've all been shafted. And back now to what I spoke about at the beginning, and there's a lot of citations for you to study it further if you so wish. The Chisler die. I know this stuff doesn't make sense to most people, but there you have it. The Woman in the Wilderness. There's the book. But again, it's obfuscating what it really all about, so don't be expecting anything too fancy to come from them books, because they're obfuscating its reality. Now, when I've looked at this book that was made up of my sort of feelings and thoughts, interpreting intuitively what I was studying at each time, I'd created a triangle, and at the top I'd put Jesus, and in one corner I'd put Yahweh, the other Allah, and in the centre Lucifer. And what I'd done in this is look at the attributes of each. What's very clear is none of them, that's Jehovah, Allah and Lucifer, in any way, shape or form conform with the Heavenly Father given to us by the Gospels through Jesus. They are contrary to that particular creative force. Okay. Now back to Abe Finkelstein. As I said, in that interview, the actual antagonist in there was the actual so-called pastor who believed himself superior. Now, he asked a question of Abe Finkelstein, which was, he wanted to know how the Jews gained full control over Christendom. Now, Abe's made it clear, which I already know because I understood and studied the Carthaginians, that they were in it from the beginning when it comes to the Catholic Church. But what I think the pastor was more interested in asking was, how have you got control of the American evangelical movement? And this is the synchronicity of it. You know, I'd found my notes, then this interview comes back up. I had to watch it twice to reabsorb it again. But when Abe obviously wasn't going to answer that question. And so what he actually said was, well, you know, we worship Lucifer, which is Freemason, the god of Freemasonry in its entirety. If you've read the Morals and Dogma, you'll understand that concept. Now, Lucifer is slightly different as between Yahweh and Allah, in that Lucifer is more of an encouraging, more come with me and I'll give you power. Whereas both Yahweh and Allah, it's commandments. You know, you will do what I say. I will make you do that kind of thing. So the attributes are slightly different. But what I put together in this intuitive sort of premise to what I was seeing in relation to these studies way back was that what I'd written here is that I had it down that Lucifer, Yahweh, and perhaps even Allah, but not necessarily Allah because he's a bit of a rebel, are the same entity. And that while they've got the evangelicals bigging up Yahweh and hating Lucifer, and not realising that the same entity has given the Luciferians absolute control over those that follow Yahweh. Now we've gone through Genesis 1 and we can see a distinction. Genesis 1 is a group of gods talking about the creation, telling us we made man in our image. And then you've got this secondary, this garden, which is not the creation of the earth. It's a creation of a garden on the earth. And then you've got Yahweh comes into play. Now, when I studied the ancient traditions way, way back, there was a tradition that suggested that the war against the heavens was actually carried out by a particular entity. And that it was that particular entity that was cast down with all his mates to the earth until they repented. And then in that tradition, you're going through different gods that came with him but then repented and so became an antagonist to the one that was cast out originally. And in those traditions, the actual entity that was cast out was Yahweh. So I just thought, after that interview, there is something we're missing. And reason why the Talmudists have full control over the entire gig. Now, I'm not a practicing Catholic, I never have been, and I don't understand the liturgy as you would expect a Catholic to understand it. But do the Catholics worship Yahweh, or do they worship Jesus and his mother? In which case, then the Heavenly Father that which the original church presents to us isn't Yahweh or Allah or indeed Lucifer? Is that what's got lost? And is that the reason why they've had to annihilate that old ancient church? I don't know. But I think it's worth contemplation. Because whatever we think, whatever we feel, it's a simple fact that right now, today, the Talmudists and the god Lucifer control the Christians, they control the Muslims. In the fanatical aspect to it. Because they're all pushing the Talmud. Zionist Christians are pushing the Talmud. The fanatical Muslims are pushing the Talmud. Because they've inserted the Talmud through the Surah and the Hadiths. The Christian Zionists have picked up the Talmud through taking on Cyril Schofield's notes he made while studying the Bible as fact. And completely subverted the Torah. Now, my points of reference for the Torah, for the biblical tradition, come in this manner. When you get into the traditions, not necessarily of the religions, but there's always a precursor. There's a prophet, but there's a precursor, bringing readiness for the prophet. So they put a mindset in readiness for when the prophet comes. People are already aware of what it is he's saying and they can understand him, or she. And when I was seeking this out, the precursor I found was a guy called Hillel the Babylonian. And he was an exceptionally well-loved man, highly intelligent and highly versed in the traditions of his day. And about 27 years before the man, or Jesus, was said to have been born, Hillel was asked to come into the temple and run it because it weren't working properly. Probably because they were operating incorrectly. So I looked into this guy. And in fairness, there wasn't enough data available to me to get a proper insight into the entire character of the man. But there was a point at which he was asked to define the Torah or the Old Testament. And what he said was, the Old Testament is about do unto others as you'd have done unto yourself. And that the rest is a commentary. Now that's a precursor for what Jesus was promoting, which is do unto others as you'd have done to yourself. Now, the reason why Christianity, in my opinion, has become benign is because of a misunderstanding of that concept. Because do unto others as you'd have done to yourself has been promoted as a do nothing. Don't judge people, don't do anything, don't interact. Do as you're told. Let's analyse that phrase, do unto others as you'd have done to yourself. So let's look at it in this respect. If you're off the mark in some behaviour, some belief, some form of action that you're carrying out, would you wish somebody to put you right? You would, wouldn't you? You would wish that unto you, so that you could do it to others. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because that character trait within that as a projection, as a natural projection, if you're a complete nutjob and violent guy, then you believe in your heart that the way you bring others to what you would class as not doing right would be to hit them with violence. You're naturally going to be in that mix and you're going to get violence. But if you've put yourself in a position where you're a bit more enlightened and a bit more of a gentle soul, you would expect somebody to put you right, but in a way that would be acceptable to you, because that's the way you would try and help others. So it's not a benign concept, as Christianity has become, because that's how it's been preached. So when you know people are wrong, do unto others. If you would expect others to put you right if you were wrong, then you're working in sync with that by helping others to see the error of their ways. But it's how you do it that's going to determine how it's coming back to you. And that misunderstanding, in my opinion, is the reason why we are all dependent on everything on the outside of ourselves and not operating. As the man said, from the kingdom within. And that ends the Sunday sermon. So there we go. There are my thoughts. After we looked at La La Land and the madness that's afoot and going down everywhere. I hope that makes sense to you. And I hope you can give that some contemplation. Because it's a good gig, that. So where are we on the old chit-chat? Now then. Oh, good grief, you've been chatting away. Have you not been paying attention? You're getting naughty. Detention. There's going to be line writing going on, I'm telling you now. Oh my God, you have been chatting. Right, nicotine patches and the lot. Well, actually, Paul sent me an interesting video about fags, saying this is what you're addicted to. Well, I knew about the sugar, but I didn't know about this particular chemical. But the tobacco I smoke is said to have no chemistry in it. So whether that's the case or not, I don't know. But basically they're saying that what you're addicted to isn't necessarily the nicotine. And that nicotine it's not bad for you. It's the chemicals they put in you. Right, I think we've found you. Edward's Jenga Medal, says Anthony Morse. Ah, right, yes, good, we're here. Jay says the very epitome of stolen valour. And every single one of them has that, do they not? None of them have, apart from Andrew, have actually seen any action. Although little Ginger Nuts reckoned he's shot a lot in Afghanistan. But then, is Ginger Nuts the real Harry? I don't think so. And is Willie Boy the real William? I don't think so. Sense Offender, Sean has to be the most educated truther out there. His knowledge is never ending. Well done, brother. Well, thank you very much, sir. I just stay true to myself. That's all. I don't get sidelined by fruit bats that say, no, this is what's going on. I'll look at it, I'll examine it, and I've told you my points of reference. I'll apply them, and if it doesn't fit, it's garbage. If it might fit, I might pursue it a little bit more. So that kingdom within, folks, it's the way to go. That's the gig. But thank you for that, Sense Offender. The Lone Rizzler, Profiler X. Oh dear, a swear word. You've done your own work, 100% agree. Well, thank you very much, sir. Jerry says, Tree and I saw a very interesting thing where nicotine chewing gum was getting rid of side effects of the sneezy thing of the past. Oh. Tree says, yes, Jerry, absolutely correct. That's why they wanted folk to stop. Profiler X says to the Lone Rizzler, is Brickhead. Father tells you all you need to know. Is Brickhead. Jerry Sonamick gives it the old thumbs up, the clapping hands, and the crying with laughter. Sense Offender, Khan has got a face only a mother could love. Do you think his mother loved that face? Oh, I'm not sure. Probably reminded her of his dad. Anyway. See the thing on the chicken's ownership there as well. Bonkers. See the thing on the chicken ownership there as well. Bonkers. Chicken ownership. Have I missed something there? It's not hard for me to miss stuff, remember. Folk bought the nicotine patches as they weren't getting the V. Profiler times, so the Lone Rizzler, Profiler X 100%, nice to chat with the like-minded. Jay says, does nicotine patches help those who took the V? Jay said, asking for a multiple friends. Well, Iodine does. Look, it's pretty obvious what's happened. They've installed software. That's it. You're now all connected to the Wi-Fi systems, whether you like it or not. That's the gig. Jace, I haven't seen the study on that, says Treen, but I did find loads of research proving those smokers and those on patches didn't get. Sense Offender, Lyndon B. Johnson said at Yale Uni, future wars will be fought with floods, droughts and hurricanes. Absolutely. And earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and tsunamis. Jay says, we do not endorse that at all, media or sickos. I was about to give up before I saw that. Well, I mean, I could have given up actually when I gave up the magic, because, but honestly, you've got to do something naughty. You should just pick up something else naughty. You know what I mean? You've got to be naughty. Because if you're not naughty, you're a saint. And I don't think saints would go down right well these days, would they? You know what I'm saying? Where are we? Jay says, no, unfortunately, magic cabbage may help. Well, it does. It stops you getting brainwashed. But it cancels out the masculine. And I've showed you that, didn't I? Because when it come back after I give it up and I was... Aah! But when you know that, you just know what it is. You just wait for it to balance. And you have to balance it. And it's worked exceptional. 11 weeks in, me now. One more week and I'm 3 months. The magic 3 month. Cabbage may help. Standing by for a beating from Sean. A beating? No, for it's a magic cabbage may help. Standing in by. No. If that's your fancy. Look, I'd smoked it for years. I loved it. I loved the stuff. And I've had a couple now and again of thinking, but no, I didn't. I have been a good boy, and I didn't, and I haven't. I do know this though. I was speaking to my son about it. That back in the day when I've done this before, after you've gone for a while, if you have a session one evening, as long as you don't have another one in the morning, because that's the killer, all is well. On the bright side, your necro partner doesn't seem to complain a lot, nor be high maintenance. Necro partner. Okay. Same symptoms, says Treen. Thanks, the Lone Rizzler. Profiler X. Chubbard Nicks in control, dialectical skullduggery. Well, they're in control, but they're not at the top of the tree. Argentina's president is a Jesuit. The current pope was the leader of the junta in the 80s. He was, yeah. Michael Jr. says Falklands is aborted by tenants whose landlords are absentees living in the British Isles. The Lone Rizzler says NPJV. Jerry Sonamick says the nicotine binds to the receptors, Jace. That's how it was helping on the other front, but on the V, I'm not sure. Well, nicotine is the best regulator for your blood sugars that they can find. When you don't smoke, your body's got to go back to food regulating your blood sugars. And there's a period, I've said this before, because I've given up twice. There's a period when you give up smoking where your body has to shift from nicotine regulating the blood sugars back to food. And that's when you feel hungry all the time. But it only lasts a week or two. And as long as you don't start filling your face, you won't become a fat Lloyd ass. If you fail and fill your face at that point, you're going to become a fatty. So it's only a week or two, and then your food then starts to regulate your blood sugars. And happy days. But this is why a lot of people, women especially, they smoke because it keeps their metabolism high. They don't put on weight. I smoke. But look, I've got a video. Didn't I make a couple of videos where I showed you how to grow a tobacco plant? They grow all by themselves and you get 20 billion seeds. I've still got the seeds. It tastes like a cigar. You know them little Tom Thumb cigars? You can either roll it up or you can crush it up and put it in a paper. It tastes exactly like a Tom Thumb cigar. And you know there's no chemistry in that. You know that. When I can't get my Pueblo, I'll just do that. Because when you shift from anything, whether it's tea with no sugar, it's a 2-week to 3-week gig for your body, your taste buds to get used to it. And once it gets used to it, it's used to it. And the same will be for the fags. I mean, because I went on, when I were around the Hoity Toits, I started smoking them Tom Thumbs, so I didn't look like a feral fruitcake around these people. And I have to say, I got quite used to it. The only problem was they're very strong. And they blacken your teeth pretty quick. So, mind you, it doesn't matter now. When I'm using bicarbonate of soda for my teeth, and I've been for 4 years. Best thing I've ever done. My mouth is never sore. So, you don't want to be fluoride in your face, do you? I smoke, Jerry. I do think there's a benefit to it. Of course there is. I love it, mate. I love the ritual of making it. And I've started doing chewing gum, and I noticed last week I was chewing gum. How obscene. So I'm sorry about that, chaps. So I'm trying to get myself less feral. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I was chewing gum last week. How outrageous with that. I'm surprised none of you called me names. You should have called me names, because that was disgusting. And Jay says he really gets sick. And Kraken, Admiralty Courts in Family Courts and Administration of Justice 1970 S3116. It is there for all to see. Thanks, Kraken. Treen says Barry Trower worked at the bioweapons facility at Portadown. He said it was used as a weapon of war in Vietnam and Iraq. Do you know they poisoned the entire south of England during the 50s and gave them all lung cancer? Did you know that? They did it over Swindon. So they did the south of England from the Navy, and they did the Swindon area from the RAF. That's what them bastards were doing. So, yes, I agree with that, but they were also doing it here. And still are. Have you seen these chemtrails these days? There's thousands of them. You're not impressed to see a blue sky. And when you do see the blue sky, you know that's the blue sky. Now, all this furore about the sun. I've seen a few great sunsets here in this last week. There's nothing wrong with sun. Sun's fine. So, I'm happy with that. Jay says, I had been under an extreme amount of duress last 12 months, built up and crushing. A lot to it. Exactly, Jace. I've not had a sniffle, says Tree. Be careful what you are led to believe is all I can say. Use discernment in all matters, says Jace. Absolutely. Solvermist. Oh, no, don't tell me Britain are fighting with the wrong side again. Damn bugger. That's it, you see, Britain. That's the key word, British Empire. Not England, not Scotland, and not Wales. The British Empire. You know, these immigrants are all coming over going, we're going to attack the Empire. Who the fuck do you think brought you here, you fucking lunatics? You are the Empire. You know, brain dead. Untitled, hit the like. Yeah, get that like button hit. I've been noticing they've been taking stuff off me all week, the bums. They're cruel. Profile X, non-compliance. That's exactly what it has to be. And we better crack on, folks, because they're going to try it on. The Lone Rizzler. JV, I'm scared to stop smoking. Made it to 58 without Big C. I prefer vaping. Although don't do the vaping. Keep your fags going. But honestly, Pueblo tobacco, it's stronger because there's no chemistry in it. And you know what? You don't smoke half as much. Since I've given up the magic, 30 grams is lasting me 7 days. 7 days, 30 grams. Because it's strong. You've got a good, massive rush of nicotine. You don't need one. You don't need another for like an hour, 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hours you can go. Solvermus says, stay neutral. Exactly, Solvermus, well said. Jay says, understood, bro. Our worst enemy, we are. It's how you feel inside that drives what you do outside. Exactly. And don't take all your input from the outside. Take it from the inside. It doesn't fit right with the inside, no matter what fruit bat's telling you, saying it, or showing you. Don't accept it. You don't have to tell them you're not accepting it, but just in your heart, don't accept it. Sort out the inside, and the outside takes care of itself. Treen says, Tegland's Rizzler, stop the vapes. You have to get off them vapes, girl. The crap. Kraken, all pictures of 2 cryptos it. Kraken Zio. Solvermist. Lato La Yuso Kumani. Is that Aborigine? I smoke joints, but it definitely be done safer by lowered. Well, you just put less in. I lowered my... I only put it a tiny bit in. People should laugh at me. But you know what? When you lower your intake of that, just to a fine point, it still hits the spot. And then that doesn't cost you a fortune either. Tune says, Mew, thanks Mew. Haven't finished it, obviously. It keeps getting built and added. There's something that's I'm gonna put something in it that's gonna make it completely change. I can feel it in my waters. Jerry Sonamic says, go on. All Game of Thrones, the world's a stage. The people are ye cannon fodder. The Lone Rizzler, JV, absolutely. In the UK, Westminster is the stage. Yes, it's also called. What's its original name? I forgot. Thorny Island. That's what it is, Westminster. It's Thorny Island. A swamp. And look at the creatures that are in it. PA Fenlon, 100%. Their opulent lives are the reward for selling the rest of us to the devil. Well, they sold themselves to the devil. They just encourage you like Pied Pipers. And if you follow them, you followed them. If you did the deed, you did the deed. You know, I'm sick of all this blame game. You know, I had it with David Icke the other week. I just said, look, you're just playing into this blame game, pal. Stop it. Behave yourself. So they act with no regard to conscience. They don't have conscience. They're not taught guilt. They're not taught guilt. The Talmud. There's no guilt in the Talmud. It gives you permission to do everything. So there is no guilt. The red heifer lives matter. Yeah, poor thing. They burn it and all. A God who likes barbecue can't be all bad. Molech. I'm kidding. We know that, matey. Martin Glasgow says it makes it obvious what's afoot when it's found there's an imam permanently residing at the Vatican. Jerry Sonomic says, a bit like today, Gaia capturing those that think they've found something good. So Funny Jay says, Treen, folks seek approval everywhere outside themselves, when really it's internal approval that the soul craves. Of course it is. Because the soul is your internal gig. So the more you're in touch with the internal, the more your soul's expressing itself. You're pulling the sword from the stone. You're releasing yourself from the command of the genetics in the avatar and the outside world and pulling in the soul. That's why the sword, the symbol of the sword from the stone is a divine king, means is taking command of his avatar. He's riding the chariot, you know, if you go for the tarot symbolism. Where are we? They've poisoned the wells again. I wouldn't venture in the dark. My ear is thick with their demonic rituals. This place is demonic. You're around Roslyn, aren't you? Yeah. Folks seek approval. Yep. They've poisoned the wells again, says Profiler X. I've been looking at my material links to John Muir, the very famous philosopher, conservationist, writer, etc., and his roots. His father's sister to my great-great-granny, John Muir, Scots Freemason. Not everyone in Freemasonry is bad. It's the occult side of it, the back end. The side they wanted me in. The Muir's father was Scottish Rite Freemason, Presbyterian minister. He went to the US in the 1800s, and John Muir, very famous. Not I wonder why he turned his back on Roosevelt. Allah is man, I'm leg, I'm head. Okay. Treen, Earl of Roslin, the fourth granddaughter, married the Rothschild. She just died a couple of years ago. White Horse says Yeshua. Hello, White Horse. Yeshua indeed. Treen, who's Elohim? That's right. Anahita is, or Sophia Pisto. She was the one that kicked this off. They formed this place through Sophia, and she chose to do it with the archaic side of life, to give it the yin-yang, this tension down here. If you go with the traditions. It can denote both masculine and feminine gods. The Hebrew Bible also denotes not distinguishing person or being between this Elohim and Jehovah, and therefore Elohim was used as the... And White Horse says, name title, that was given to Jehovah, the Elohim of Israel. No, Jehovah is Yahweh. He is a commander. He's a commanding God. Fire and brimstone. Commandments. You go Genesis 1. There are no rules. It's there you go. We'll give you an avatar. You're called man. You're in our image. Crack on. Free will. But be careful. The punishments are severe. Big E says, you've been on fire these last 5 weeks, dude. Long may you continue to burn your light bright. Thanks, Big E. Yeah, I'm definitely coming back into the thing. It's, you know, I've had me 10 years in the wilderness. It's time to come back to it. Thank you for that, mate. Treen says, yes, you do, Sean. Authentic, the real McCoy. Well, thank you. Anthony says, nice one, Sean. Thanks, bro. I've been whacking it for the past 2 weeks. Been busy with private life and a wee touch of downtime. Most of it spent in the woods. I've seen you. Back on track. Coffee club again soon. No problem, mate. You get out there and enjoy yourself with your flea bags, mate. Because that's what it's all about. Listening to me pop on. You can listen to that any time of the week. It's not essential. You're doing right, mate. And I've seen your videos, so well done, matey. Jerry says, yes, Sean, and you get the laughy side when you go the once-off route. Yeah, well, I haven't got a fruit for a bit sometimes. I should have a fruit bat moment every now and again, shouldn't I? Jerry says, yes, Sean, oh, I've done that one. Train, exactly, Sean, bloody chemtrails, constantly grey shield. As long as we don't give it the energy, all about harvesting your energy, they can't get your soul. It's immortal, and these scumbags can't leave this place. Nobody gets out of here alive, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, I'll bid you farewell. Thanks, mods. Thank you, everybody, for taking part. And I will say, till the next time.
synchronicity.